listening to the questionnaire.
Say that again.
You're listening to the questionnaires.
I've just started. Right here, for your ears, for your eyes.
The questionnaire.
Get your comic on.
Poke it up, poke it up, poke it up, poke it
Are
up.
you listening to me? Yeah, you should be, because this is the questionnaire. Ladies and gentlemen, I am the Unknown Factor, aka that Wade Wilson of hip hop, right? I hope you've been tuning into these past quests. It's been phenomenal. We've had co-hosts for many of them. There's a couple that we haven't, but they seem to go fine, you know? Right? And with that, let's pick into the mind of the one, Chris Stevens. Yeah, we're just getting right into it, man. I ain't doing a long intro today. They usually a little longer than that. I ain't gonna lie, Chris. I ain't gonna lie. Right? How you doing today, man?
Doing terrific, Jay. Thanks for having me.
Man, it is phenomenal, man. I've been loving this show so much. But I'll tell you, there's one thing, like, we got the pre-show questionnaire, which, like I said, all y'all out there, all you got to do is be a member of the Patreon, link in the description. You can check all the pre-show questionnaires out just for being a member, right? But the final question of that is, it's definitely more a question for me. I know it wasn't the final well, it was the final question until we resent those other 3 questions, but I'll fix that. And that's a whole different point, and we've modified the questionnaire. It's getting more interesting, folks, if y'all want to go check them out. But the normal final question, I'll say, that everyone gets is more for me, because it's, what specifically do you want to cover? I've never had someone say they wanted to talk about another artist, Chris. Right? You see, we want to talk about the art of Michael Allred. Now, I'm curious, why do you want that to be a topic of conversation within the podcast? It intrigues me.
Sure, Jay. Well, I'm making the Marvel art of Michael Allred. So, so that's
my
that's
project,
the reason.
dude.
The Clover Press has partnered with Marvel over the last year, I suppose, or 2 years, or no, about a year since it started up. And I've been working on that line on a few books with them. We did the Marvel art of David Mack about a year ago, and now Michael's book is on Kickstarter right now. Started on Tuesday, so that's the big reason there. Yeah, no, it's a big celebration of Michael Allred's almost 30 years worth of Marvel stuff in some beautiful oversized hardcovers, 3 exclusive print sets, 1,000-piece puzzle, sticker sets, all kinds of great fun stuff that just really suits Michael's stuff and the work him and Laura have done for since 1996 at Marvel. So yeah, it's going to be really over 200 pages and great stuff.
But a puzzle?
Yeah, there'll be a puzzle. Yeah, Clover makes these great puzzles. They've made them, I believe, for Russell Dowderman and I think for David Nakayama. And yeah, it's a 1,000-piece puzzle. Yeah, it's pretty awesome. It's like a 44 character spread, so be a lot of fun to play with.
See, that's a cool, like a really cool extra addition to that. And I think that's the interesting thing, especially, I mean, it's interesting to me if you look at Kickstarter when it initially started, what it was for, and how it has become a place for people. It's its own comic book publishing company to a certain.
Pretty much.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, it's changed. It's certainly changed a great deal from a decade ago. And yeah, it's a much different atmosphere, and it's kind of a pre-order system. Some people don't say it that way or want to say it that way, but it's kind of a pre-order system at this point. But it's for publishing books like this. It's a really beautiful thing. Where in the past, Jay, most of the money, even in a good deal, is going to go to the publisher. But in this environment, most of the money goes to the creator. So yes, of course, Marvel makes money, and of course, Clover makes money, but most of the money is going to Michael and Laura Allred. That's how these things are set up. So it's just a whole new, it's just a whole new publishing realm out there, so to speak. I don't think anybody quite has it figured out just yet, but it's certainly different than it was. You're dead right about that.
Well, and that's the thing. I think and this goes across the board with entertainment. It doesn't just apply to comics in any way.
Absolutely.
But yeah, just the wave of technology in the past 20, 30
I can't
years.
imagine how much radio changed. You said you did radio. I can't imagine how much that's changed.
Oh
It's
no,
got to
no,
be
I ran an online radio.
okay.
Right. Like I didn't so exactly. So I was able to create a radio that was just a station you could like we even had an app and everything and it was like it was a whole thing to run it. I'm not but so yeah, and I can only
Okay.
imagine. I mean that's so I wasn't in the radio days. No, that's Fred Kennedy, man, who's writing Dead Romans getting ready to do that second run of that coming out, man. If you want to talk radio, you got to get him and I don't know.
Okay.
I need to get Fred back on the show, him and Nick with that coming up, but that's a whole other thing. But no, I never actually did that portion of it. But I've
That's a
seen
great
overall.
book. Yeah, great book.
Oh yeah, no, and him and Nick are both phenomenal guys as well. But I mean, as far as if you look at the effects on technology, just over how things are distributed, how things are purchased, and how much it's changed things. But then at the same time, like to a lot of that degree, I think it's affected creators negatively monetarily because you have to pay these people that are distributing it. So I'm very, I mean, I'm happy to hear the fact of what you said, especially with it being the companies that you're dealing with in doing that. I'm very surprised to hear that you're getting a higher percentage to the artists, I mean, based on the distribution. But I guess Kickstarter's a bit of a different game,
A different animal. Yeah,
So,
it's a different animal. So there's just different, I'm not really on the business side of those things. I'm not the guy making that deal, but yeah, I mean, these are very much higher than what the industry standard would be. So for the artists, these are just terrific projects. I mean, the Marvel art of Russell Dowderman, which was back in the spring, that was, one of these Clover Marvel Art of books, just like the Michael Allred one that's live now. But the Russell Dowderman one made $350,000. It's one of the top 20, biggest comic book Kickstarters ever. So, that was, I'm sure Russell did great over the years on at Marvel, but I know this thing, I'm sure it was pretty good for him too. So, yeah, no, it's nice. It's refreshing. And it's a credit to Clover and Hank Canals, the publisher of Clover, who put the deal together. It's a credit to how they were able to manage it. And I think that's why people like Mike Allred and David Mack and, Alex Maleev, and we've got some other great ones coming up that I don't think I can really mention, just yet. But, I think you'll see it's going to turn out to be a great line.
Well, see, it's interesting because if you look at the other side of distribution through online, like which is web comics and such as that.
Sure.
That's where I think it can have a detriment on the creators because unless you, and I say this firstly from the perspective of a musician who is on Spotify, and I know how many plays it takes for it to be relevant to your pocket. You know what I mean? And from what I've heard, comics are the same way. But it's funny because, like you said, then you introduce Kickstarter, and it's a way where you're using the internet, but people are actually buying it physically. So it's an entirely different beast altogether, Chris.
It's a different beast, Jay, and there's whole different. It's a different beast, and within itself, there are entirely different realms and levels to it. Like I make this Mike Allred book, and it made $100,000 in 23 hours. I make other books for unknown creators, and they're just trying to make their first book, and they get to the point where they want to kickstart it and try to get a little money back from what they've spent out of their pocket. And maybe they make $2,000-$3,000. You know what I mean? So, but each book, they're successful on their own level. And as far as like the web comic stuff, I think I understand what you're saying. All I could say, at least for the Marvel art line, is these are creators who are very well established. They're not, that kind of thing is sort of behind them in the sense that they don't need you know what I mean by that? All these guys are very established at this point. So, but I do understand what you're saying. Yeah, it's a tricky environment. I mean, it isn't easy to, it's feast or famine, I've always joked that I know a few rich people and mostly poor people who do this, like there's not a lot of in between. And, we could joke around or get serious about societal middle class. There's not much of that and all that stuff. But in comics, yeah, I don't, at least in my experience, I know a few people who are rich and a lot of people who are poor, and it's a daily pursuit of especially the freelance life. So but that said, no, making this with Mike Allred is, I was telling him, I wasn't embarrassed to tell him, I remember, I can picture the light in the room I was sitting in during an afternoon right after high school when I read his issue of The Sandman. And to now be, and I've known him for a while now, and he was in a book that I published that did pretty well called Little Nemo, Dream Another Dream. And he did one of the great pages in that book. So that was 10 years ago. So I've known him for a while, and he worked on the first Golem of Venice Beach book that I made. But to work this closely with him, to make this book with Clover, this Marvel art of Michael Allred, has been, last few months, it's been a real joy. Just dive that deep into his work and get into his head over his process. He's deeply, another great part of these books, Jay, is the artists themselves are deeply involved. They're choosing most of the material. They're sort of curating what we're doing. The puzzle image is an image that Michael thought would be awesome. So it's not, I don't want to sound crass or put other things down, but there's a lot of stuff that's just product, right? This is a little bit, yes, we're trying to make great products. We want the stickers to be awesome stickers and stuff like that. But, Michael and Laura are deeply involved. The book is going to have, I think, I don't want to say an exact number, but the book's going to have several dozen commissions that have never been seen before or printed before. It's going to have a triptych fold out that's reversible. So a double-sided gatefold. Triptych rather. We always debate the terminology, but a three-sided, like a poster fold out. My cat is saying hello to you, Jay, there. And but yeah, and Michael's been involved. We get on the phone or through email and we go through all the choices. And one of the cool things with this Kickstarter package and the way it's done is it's kind of fun. You wind up having 6 different covers to try to figure out, because there's a direct market edition, there's a Kickstarter exclusive. Michael did a brand new exclusive wraparound that has the 44 character thing that I mentioned to you earlier that we're using for the puzzle. There's just so much cool stuff in it. There's the Dust Jacket edition is reversible, which I've never seen before. So one side is a couple of his classic images from his Silver Surfer and Fantastic FF, I guess it was called, run. And then the other side is the new wraparound cover. So whatever you could display it the way you want to, So we tried to come up with some cool things and really honor. When you look at it, it is almost 30 years. I don't want to make my friend feel old, but it's almost 30 years that he's been doing it. His first stuff there was technically maybe 95. So
that just means he started doing art right when Kevin Smith started making movies. It's okay. Everybody ages.
I think he was in one of Kevin Smith's movies, the Chasing Amy movie. I'm pretty sure he's in that movie. I'm almost certain he is. Yeah, I don't know those movies terribly well, but I'm pretty sure he was in Chasing Amy as when they were like, is that whatever the movie is where they pretend they're like their characters are comic book creators? He's in that movie.
Yeah, that is
okay. Yeah, he's in that movie. Yeah, he's in there somewhere looking handsome. Whoever the handsome one is, it's him.
That makes sense. There are several moments where I'm pretty sure they just got permission to film at cons and filmed little moments.
That probably, yeah. He was involved, definitely involved with Kevin Smith for a long time. I always remember, like, right out of high school when he was doing Madman, when I was right out of high school, like early 90s, mid 90s, and it would always accompany, and back then this was a very rare thing, so it stood out and it seemed like, like it seemed maybe, it just seemed very big, where it was Madman had been optioned by Robert Rodriguez after Robert Rodriguez had gotten hot with, I forget what movie, made him kind of a big director. But no, it's been a real pleasure.
Desperado.
It's been a real pleasure. We just launched a few days ago. It goes for another almost 3 weeks or so. I'm terrible. I should know that. Probably get yelled at for not knowing that exactly. But yeah, I think it's another.
I'll try and have this quest out. There is a link in the description to that Kickstarter for everybody that wants to check it out. I'll try and have this out before that Kickstarter is over, Chris, and that's all I'll say. And Yeah, you know anybody that knows how to edit? Like, you know anybody that wants to edit videos for the?
I don't. I don't know anybody who makes videos, to be honest.
Fair
Yeah,
enough.
that's
Fair enough.
always, I've got some stuff coming up where I'm going to be looking for video makers. So if I find anybody good and useful, I'll send them over to you.
I mean, I'd like to think we can have that discussion after the show. I digress to the point, man. But I do.
Sure, sure.
I was about to. Yeah, we'll do that later.
But yeah,
But
no. That's why. Yeah, that's why Michael Allred, Marvel Order Michael Allred was first on my list. Yeah, so yeah,
okay.
it's fun. It's a lot of work and a lot of fun, and it's one of the most fun things I've done, honestly. So really glad to see the response to it. I think it's around 120,000 in a couple days. So we got another couple weeks to go, and we're gonna be making puzzles and stuff. So who can complain, right?
See, and that's cool. But okay, don't you run Armored on Kickstarter as well?
I edit Armored. Yeah, I edit Armored.
But it
Yeah,
runs
that's a
through Kickstarter,
series
correct?
that I edit, and it's one of my, yeah, that's a real joy to work on. It's actually the first monthly series I ever worked on, so it's a lot of fun.
I'm curious. How much are you involved in the kickstarting process of that? Out of curiosity.
Um, Not, I'm involved daily, but Clover is they publish most of their books through Kickstarter, and they have they have a pretty good understanding of how Kickstarter works. So I'm involved in that. I look at things and I give my 2 cents when I think it's you don't step on people's toes doing this stuff. Everybody sort of has their department and they're sort of experts at it. So I'm involved in. I make the books, and then I do stay involved during the, like every day. The All Red campaign is something that I deal with in some way, right? But no, I'm not directly. I don't set up the campaign. That's Clover. They set up the campaign, and
Okay, it was
we're
more.
lucky to work with. I think the best PR firm, certainly in comics, Superfan Promotions. So there's like a team of people who help out and do that kind of stuff. Yeah, that's not really
Okay,
my territory. I
the
see the
reason I
stuff and I give my 2 cents on it. That's about it.
yeah the reason I ask is because I was curious as to your thoughts on incentives and if like but you don't. Yeah, I'm assuming with what you've said, you're not the one who deals with picking the incentives and all of that, right? Because I know
I've
that's
got
a whole
some
process.
questions if I think there's something that But yeah, no. What was the Armored thing that caught your mind?
Well, no, I mean, as far as just more than anything, the difference between handling a book like that as opposed to the art of Michael Allred. Because clearly with the art of Michael, you've got Marvel behind it, and that's a known name. With Armored, it's not so much. So I'm just curious
Sure.
with that, like,
Night and day.
what
Yeah,
yeah,
no, Jay, they're night
the,
and day. Yeah, the expectations are night and day. The approach as far as trying to establish as much awareness as possible in what's an incredibly fractured market right now, the approach is still the same. So you try to get as much press as you can. You try to, when you do these projects, the creator is really key. You mentioned you were in your band or music or whatnot, and think of it as the front man. It really helps if the creator can be the front man for these things. Some people are that's not them, to various degrees. Some people, the creator of Armored, Michael Schwartz, I think he's excellent at it. He enjoys doing it. He likes getting out there talking to people. But
I feel like I've
that
got him
helps.
coming
But
up on the show on a
the
different note.
approach doesn't change as much. It's more the expectations. There's certain things that work. There's certain things that are at this point. It used to be the Kickstarter, the first 3 days were your great days and the last 2 days were great days. Well, now it's really the first day is almost everything, and you'll get a little bit on the last day. So, and that scales in any direction. I'm talking from a 6-figure campaign like this, which we're lucky to have, to smaller campaigns. It doesn't really change. That's something that's changed a lot on Kickstarter, very much, and it's really entrenched, I think, right now. You'd have like the monster campaigns, like the Good Omens, or I guess the Skybound GI Joe, or Dynamite killed it with like gargoyles, I guess. those kind of things, they might, I mean, obviously Good Omens and G.I. Joe made millions, so they carried the momentum for most of their run. But those are meteors. That's like Halley's Comet type stuff. That's so rare. So even a very successful campaign now, like the Marvel art of Michael Allred, your real action is really that first 24 hours. People want to say maybe 36 hours, but it's honestly, it's mostly the first day. And then it's quiet, and you just have to be able to deal with that psychologically. That drives a lot of creators crazy, right? Because you make a lot of money or you don't the first day, and then the next days can really be, you could sit there on a Sunday of your first week and, maybe you get 2 backers or something. So you just got to be, once you do a few of them, you get used to it, I think, so.
I will say,
yeah.
I have a direct question in line to that, but I will say the coolest moment we've ever had, in my opinion, on the show that was related to Kickstarter was when Robert was on, who's doing indie comics, where he's bringing back a bunch of indie characters with their creators writing them, and it was funded while he was questing, and I was like,
oh, that's awesome.
I heard that notification. That was dope, But so as far as just cool moments to Kickstarter in relation to this show, because
that's awesome.
Yeah, we've had so many creators that their books are on Kickstarter, and I highly suggest, like, look, if there's a quest with them and it's there because I dig that creator, I dig their work, and I wish I had the funds to buy all of it, but then we go back to the whole middle class and all of that and blah blah blah. And we're not getting into all that. That's neither here nor there. Subscribe to the Patreon. It's only $2 a month, man, and y'all can see some chicanery. But as far as the Kickstarter, do you think the change in that, as far as from it going to where it was just the first couple days and the last couple days to where now it's the first and the last, is because of the knowledge that people have of it as somewhere you can get comics?
Yeah. I think that as much as there still is some aspect of the grassroots community thing of we're going to help this project out, or we're going to help this person out, or we're going to get this project over the line, that was the initial spirit of Kickstarter largely. And the pre-order aspect was much smaller 10 years ago. Now, to be honest, from what I see at least, and it's just my experience with it and taking a look, it's mostly a pre-order system, and the spirit of, we're going to, we're doing a good deed here, so to speak, that exists, but that exists for a narrow range of cultural subjects, let's say. It doesn't exist for the Marvel art of Michael Allred or stuff like, Armored or whatnot. It exists, that spirit of like that grassroots thing, that exists for societal issue type things, cultural issue type things, not just for your average book. So I think that's it. So in that sense, it makes sense to me that if that's true at all, then the pre-orders are, in the sense the first day is the biggest day. It kind of makes sense. It's like, if there's a video game or whatever, a movie coming out, most people go and get it the first day, right? Like that's just kind of right. It's kind of everything. So I think that's part of it, but I'm not. Yeah, I'm lucky, Jay. I work with guys who are like the experts on this stuff, so I try to absorb it. You know what I mean? But my thing is really making the books. I like working with the creators and making the books and trying to write my own stuff, which it's always I'm slow at. So but no, the Kickstarter, it's a big part of my life because. Yeah, a lot of these that's sort of where things are. It's not the future anymore. It's the now, So even if you have a publishing deal, you could have a deal with, whoever, and chances are, if you're not a really big name creator, some kind of crowdfunding is going to be, useful or. So yeah, it's just a reality of things.
Well,
it's just a reality.
Yeah, even to take like from that, I mean, I was just holding a book by Erica Schultz, her Daredevil run. She just started over at Marvel, but I know for a fact, like when she did the Deadliest Bouquet over, and she started as a Kickstarter, it got picked up by Image, and now she's writing like 5 books at Marvel. So obviously, it can definitely be a great asset for someone. I know, dude. 100%. I can't tell you how glad I am that I got her in before. Like I think she might have been writing her first Marvel book when we started. But back to something you said a minute ago that I'm going to wrap around this whole conversation and make a question. You said you feel the comic industry is fractured. Do you think that has to do with the fact that it is between there's Kickstarters, there's what people refer to as Wednesday Warriors and going to the comic book stores. So do you think that has an effect on the fracture? And if it's beyond that or anything, or what's your just an entire opinion? And why do you say the comic book community is fractured in that regard? Or between comics and manga for that matter?
Yeah, no, yeah. Well, manga's not really, manga's the one element of comics that I never had a deep interest in. So, I understand its place in the market, certainly, and I know some of the big works, and I love a couple of them, but it's certainly not my area. But I mean, everything is that right now, and like in terms of the entertainment stuff, everything. I mean, I just read an article where the video game industry doesn't know what it's doing, having trouble figuring out how to make money, even the tent poles. Hollywood seems pretty fucked up. We live in this open era, and the rules haven't been established, and it seems like they might not be for a while. Like right now, this is what everyone's doing, right? Podcast. This is the big thing, but it didn't exist not that long ago. So what will it be? Part of your job, I don't have to worry about it as much, but part of your job, you'll have to keep figuring out what this is, right? So there's no more. Everybody wanted to get rid of the gatekeepers, and that's good and bad. I think we're seeing the good and bad of it because the market is so flooded, and it's beautiful. Don't get me wrong. I grew up in a small town, and before the internet was really a thing. I mean, there was the internet, but I didn't really use it. It was like what rich people had or something. That's what it seemed like back then. I'm talking like, early mid 90s, even late 90s.
Wait.
And
The AOL discs.
oh my God, net zero, man, the dial-up net zero, getting phone cards to like dial up net zero. I used to, when I first, I mean, I don't know if we could get into it, but when I first got into things a long time back, I would call Arthur Adams on, like net dial-up phone cards, and like be desperate that they wouldn't run out as I'm in the middle of this talk with a guy who was like my idol growing up. And it was a different thing. Now it's easy. We're sitting here looking at each other from, across the country. It's a whole different ballgame. But no, I mean, I think it's beautiful that anybody can do it. There's a beauty to that, and a lot of great work comes from it, and I think will continue to come from it. The rate of the good work, I think, will increase because a generation will have grown up with this freedom. So I think there'll be a lot of good work that comes of it. But by the same token, it was limited before how much could just be out there in front of people because there were so many publishers who published so many books. And now that doesn't really exist. Certainly on a platform like Kickstarter, where you said they're almost like a publisher in essence, and it's like, come on in, and it could be 5,000 different books in one day. I've never counted it, but however many there's hundreds of books certainly at any given time. So you can't control it. And to be quite frank, and a Kickstarter is tough too, because for genre books that aren't drenched in tits and ass, to be honest, it could be a tough road to hoe, so.
But wait, man, I hear Cthulhu on the front of a book is a pretty quick sell too.
Well,
that's what I hear.
Any property, I've talked about that with some of the people I work with lately, and right now we are in the era where properties, it's cyclical. We cycle through these things where there was eras where the artist was purely the driver of things, where the writer was purely the driver of things, where the character was purely the driver of things, where a crossover was the driver of things. We're sort of now squarely, to me, in a time where properties are the really only, the properties of the thing. And it doesn't kind of matter what they are. I don't want to be disparaging of anything because I don't want to take shots at properties, but properties that I think most people would probably agree are very low level properties. If you want to be just, if you just want to be like cold about it and take away the emotions of it, properties that, maybe were on TV for a year or something, right? Or a cartoon that existed 30 years ago for, for something. That seems to be right now. The properties are very dominant, and I guess there's some value to that. Maybe you'll get some good stories with these iconic characters, but and you get some good creators who are working on books like that. So it's all very cyclical, right, Jay? So we're just in this weird period where. But to circle back, I'd try to answer your question. Yeah, it is. It's incredibly fractured. A book like The Golem of Venice Beach, which we just ended the Kickstarter for a few weeks ago. A book like that, now it did pretty well. It's an unknown property by an unknown creator. And yes, it had a murderer's row of guests, not guests, but star artists who worked on it. Still, it's an unknown book. And when you total up the two campaigns for book 1 and 2, it had 1,400 backers and 72,000. It did pretty well, right? But 10, 15 years ago, a book like that in a different environment, a different publishing environment, with the star creators it had, just off that, it would have been a hit book. It would have had a lot more awareness. Now it's sort of a niche thing. It's hard to break out of being a niche book. You have to. It's just a very fractured market. Yeah, I don't want to keep repeating the same thing.
And you're fine, Chris. All I know is every time you've answered any one of my questions, you formulate 3 more, and then I only ask 1, and then you answer that question, and then I have 3 more, and I forget the other 2 in relation to what was before, which is hilarious and how most of these things go. But to that end, I understand as far as the mass of creators coming in, because I started doing music when I was 32. I started doing hip hop, and it quickly became.
I think that, from what I understand, is very similar. Yeah, there's no gatekeepers. Everybody can do it. Everybody can say, "Hey, I'm a rapper. I'm a hip hop guy." Yeah, it's very similar from what I understand.
Yeah, and then literally, I ended up the other half of Kill Factor, man. He's somebody that's been doing it when there were gatekeepers, unless you wanted to figure out how to run the deck to deck and get real technical at it. But I will say, as far as the questionnaire podcast, I like to think we do a little bit to make it look smoother than some of the podcasts do. Not to, gloat on my own ego, right? But
you ask good questions, Jay. You ask good questions.
Well, man, I'm trying to make the show look good too. Well, I should say at this point, Shiro makes the show look really good. She does all that wizardly with the graphics and all of that and everything. But do you think, because you say there are no gatekeepers, and I understand that's a conversation we had recently. If you look at Twitter, it used to be, if you wanted to put your opinion out, you could either go scream it in the streets and you look kind of crazy, or you could try and write a letter to, the comic, the newspaper, the blah, 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 whatever. But there was an editor. There was very much a gatekeeper there that you had to get past to make that information public. So I think the loss in that, I can completely relate as far as what you're saying there. And I think sometimes, the world could use a bit more of an editor, but I don't know how you could ever get an editor that, that's a conversation.
Well, there's serious consequences to it. You're right, Jay, and there's serious consequences to it, where for several hundred years, the printed word carried a unique power. It carried an authority of correctness.
Chris,
now, it wasn't always,
and
it was used for evil purposes sometimes. But
hey, Chris, give me 1 sec. Sorry, son of a bitch. I thought I fucking what? Okay, can you start answering that question again? My bad.
Yeah, no, sure. I was just saying that there's consequences to it, because for hundreds of years, the printed word had a certain, just an indisputable power to it, a power of people perceiving it as to be factual because it was printed. It just had an inherent power. And sure, oftentimes the things that were printed were total bullshit or used for evil purposes. We all know that. But what I'm saying is, for hundreds of years, the printed word carried an authority to it. That is completely erased in the span of less than 2 decades. And that is a societal shift that is a very heavy shift, an extremely heavy shift. So, I see facts every day, ranging from sports articles to comic book shit to world stuff that is just, ridiculously wrong. I see people who are respected as being intellectuals, talking heads on TV, and the shit they're saying about the topic they're trying to talk about is just factually incorrect. So, that's a deeper thing. But yeah, I mean, we're living through this weird time, and comics is part of it, So all these endeavors, all these creative endeavors are different, There's good and bad to it. Maybe a book like Armored wouldn't have existed 10 years ago because the 4 or 5 publishers who are worth a damn wouldn't have been interested in it, perhaps. Who knows, right? So, but yeah, there's you just got to everyone's trying to figure out, how to navigate it. A company like Clover, I think they have a pretty good idea with the crowdfunding publishing model. So, that's sort of the path I'm walking down on most of my projects, Jay.
All right, Chris, how deep do you want to get into the fact that society is being controlled to a certain degree before I ask my next question?
I'm not big into that stuff, but I mean, yeah, let's talk comics, I guess.
Well, but I'm gonna make it comic relevant because that's what we do.
Okay.
Right. So
sure.
So think about it. To know other people and those around you, those you may never meet, the best way to do that is stories from those individuals, right? But if you make it to where those stories become way harder to access as far as actually getting the printed medium compared to look, man, I'm sorry, I felt like it was easier. Comics were cheaper percentage wise. Now, mind you, so was everything else. So this is an increase of everything. But if there was more disposable income at the hands of everyone, then everyone would have greater access to stories. So if you do that and you eliminate the ability for people to read other people's stories, don't you kind of really divide and therefore conquer?
Yeah, no, I know what you're talking about, Jay. There's this sort of element of control mechanism and limiting the discourse of people and what people experience. Yeah, I mean, sadly, I mean, look at all the reports from the younger kids, the younger generation. They all sort of speak to, that's where things are headed. There's a report that most grade school kids don't read novels anymore. They they don't read books anymore, even in school. So that's just sort of where the culture seems to be headed. But I'm with you on that stuff. Hey, my wife just walked in, but let's talk, let's say we talk for another 10, 15 minutes or so. I'm sorry to cut it short, but we can cover some of the
fine,
questions.
man.
They were
there's
some great
Dr. Biz,
questions.
but
Let's have some fun with a few of them.
I'll tell you what, man. Let's just know what got you started. What got you your start love of comics, man? What really got you I gotta go, I gotta do it. I gotta get in this. And you looked at it, and you were like, I must.
I just, Jay, I grew up in the 80s, and I just always loved comics. I mean, the roots of my love for it, the sort of deep roots for it, are probably the same for a lot of people of my generation, where Frank Miller in particular, I grew up, I didn't really know my father, and Frank Miller's work, which might seem odd in today's view of some things, but not to me. Frank Miller's work was sort of a father figure to me growing up, in a very positive way. And Alan Moore, Grant Morrison. I was incredibly lucky to work with Grant Morrison about 10 years ago on a short story, but still, it was a real trip. I had written a book report on him in 8th grade. And then I was working with him, a couple decades later. So that was great. But yeah, I've always loved it, and I tried to figure, when I read Dark Knight Returns when I was 12, I think, when it first came out, I tried, I realized it was so much better than the other Batman books that I would get at 7-Eleven or whatever, and I would sit there, and it was just something that I was interested in. I would try to figure out why, and hopefully over the years I've put a lot of time into it, and maybe figured out one or two things. I don't know. I'm still trying to figure it out, but I just always loved it, Jay. Yeah, Captain Carrot. I remember buying Captain Carrot off a street vendor in New York City when we went up there for Christmas stuff or whatever one year. So yeah, I mean, some of my best memories are reading Ronin when it was first coming out and just being baffled by it. I was like 9 years old. I never saw anything like Frank Miller's Ronin. So yeah, no, I just always loved it.
All right.
I'm
What was the name of that again? What carrot?
Captain Carrot. Captain Carrot.
Because look, we just had Robert on too, and they're bringing back a flaming carrot story, right? So like,
Oh
but
yeah,
I've never
That
heard.
was a
What is
classic of the '80s. Flaming Carrot. No, different. Captain Carrot was DC Comics. he led a team of other superpowered animals. It's just fun stuff. Guy named Scott Shaw. He's got a great signature with the exclamation point.
I have to find.
Check it out. Fun stuff.
I really have to find that now because.
Oh man, it's great stuff. Check it out.
That sounds
fun stuff.
Phenomenal, man. That sounds. Yeah, because like I said, we were just talking Flaming Carrot, which is obviously a completely different character. But yeah, I can't. I'm like having
Bob Burden. That was Bob Burden's character originally. Yeah.
That's. Can I say, man? I really sincerely hope people tune into this show and they listen and they realize that the depth there is in comics, because I don't think people realize that a lot, man. I think so many people even still kind of related to, because Dave, who's one of the co-hosts over here, he says at least once a week he has somebody walk in and go, "They made Walking Dead comics."
Change is slow, man. All I could say is it's so much more mainstream and part of the culture and accepted than it was. It's so much more accessible and mainstream. It used to be like, I can't tell you, man, like all through the 80s and then through high school, I might have known one other person who read comics, like
you
that's
knew
just the
one
way
person?
it was.
Wait.
Right. So now, like you said, even if they don't know The Walking Dead was comics, they do. It's a whole different ball game. Like I live in a pretty small compound, and when there's a couple of families with little kids, and when they see me, a lot of times I'll sit outside and work on stuff. And if I have books with me and they see them, it's an accepted thing. Like if it was a movie or something, that was not the case, not that long ago. Comics were like a weird outsider thing. So it's shifting tides though. That's all. It's nobody really, we'll all find out together, man. We'll be, we'll come back and talk about this in a year and see what's up. We'll see where things land,
I sincerely hope that people are able to look at it as more piece of literature. Because look, man, I know for a fact that I read a Spider-Man comic to my boy recently, and it has him to the point where he's like, "I want to learn to read in my head like you, Daddy." And if that doesn't show that comics are a great form to help encourage children to read, therefore make them to where they will read more, because that's one of the most important things. Like the fact that you said,
terrific learning tool. It's got, I think academics have picked up on it to some degree, not as much as hopefully they will, Jay. But no, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, I learned so many words when I was a little kid just because I've said this to a million people. You see the word, you see the action. So you see like a drawing usually, and then there's some word you never heard of, like omnipotent or something, but you see it and you can figure it out, or, at least you have a chance of figuring it out. So great learning tools. And, certainly for kids, I guess things are so different now with little kids with the screen, because they just constantly have a screen in their hands for the most part, probably. But, the kids who don't want to read, which is, a good percentage of kids, comic is certainly more enticing than The Great Gatsby or whatever. You know what I mean? So it's a bridge. It's a good bridge. Hey, there's a lot of great Gatsby comics. Clover actually makes one. So I'll plug that for them. But, I'm just saying. So, but it sounds like we got a few more minutes here, Jay. I think my wife went in doing something. So yeah, let's keep going for a little bit here.
All right. Well, it's oh man, you got me like how many more minutes? It's about 5.
I think we got a good 10 minutes at least.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. So, all right. Time noted. Right.
Who drew that Swamp Thing behind you, Jay?
Huh?
Who drew the Swamp Thing behind you?
Oh, that beautiful piece was done none other than Mike Ruth, man. Yeah.
Okay, that's nice.
Mike Ruth did that, and he actually did it live on the show.
Oh, cool. Oh, wow.
He actually
killed it.
He was actually recently on again, and he did a Swamp Thing on a blank cover, which that auction ended. I don't know who got it. I know somebody did, and I'm just like, yeah, because Mike.
Killed it.
I've never. That's the thing. I've actually had the privilege of having several artists on the show, man, and I've had some people draw some weird things over here, Chris. I really have. But I will say, I've never had them draw Darkwing Duck's girlfriend in a bikini. Like what? Like, but a collect. Okay, but you said a collection. Like he literally had a collection of these.
So from 2010 to 2016, I owned a comic book shop in Philadelphia, and we published books as well through the shop, and that's where I made some of the books that I made. But we had a comic book shop, and a very, nice guy. He was a very sweet guy, and it just made it, the scene of it was hard to forget because it was a big guy. He was probably 6'4", 6'5", and 250 easy. I mean, an easy 250. And he'd come in, and he was this big guy, and he had the softest voice. And at first he was sort of embarrassed about it in the beginning, but he wanted Darkwing Duck's girlfriend, but like drawn in bathing suits and stuff, never naked or never like sexual shit. We wouldn't have gone down that road. It would have been creepy because we had a lot of kids come in the store, but he wanted her in bathing suits. And it was like, he was in his 30s or whatever. He was certainly a grown man. So it was like, whatever. And I had a lot of artists. We had a lot of artist friends who would hang around the store, and, certainly on the weekends, hang out at the store. And it was a way, they'd make a few bucks, and he'd get his Darkwing Ducks. And we did that for about a year or so. He would come in every month or so, and he would get a little extra money. And he would, I forget the girl's name, but the Duck's girlfriend. That was the best one, man. That was a fun one.
I got no idea. I mean, I remember
the same guy told me Stan Lee. The same guy insisted Stan Lee came through his window one night with Bob Kane, and they talked about who created what. I was just like, and I said, did you show him the Darkwing Ducks? And so you just gotta have fun sometimes. People have their little fantasies, I suppose.
Oh yeah, no, that's not. Yeah, because like I've heard. I think the worst, like the one that I've heard on the show that I was like, dude, are you serious? Was they wanted you to draw something and then put Elmer's glue on it.
It goes over my head. What's the joke?
White Elmer's glue on a female that was very scantily clad.
Oh, Jesus Christ!
Yeah, exactly, and that's really we're just gonna wrap it on that, man. Because why not? Like from Darkwing Duck to do something terrible. Because sometimes there's something terrible, right? But I hope y'all have enjoyed this quest and have a pleasure, man. Because Chris, it's been a pleasure, but I don't want your wife to get mad, man. I know that, you know what I mean. So
thanks, Jay. It was a real treat. Yeah, I love your questions, and it's been fun checking out all your stuff. That Swamp Thing's killer. Thank you for having me. And don't mind if I just plug the Marvel art of Michael Allred one more time on Kickstarter.
Oh, wait, no. See, I was going to do that for you, Chris. That's what I'm here for, man, right? So, to find out everything, man, there's links in the description to everything we discussed in this show, all right? You can find all of it there. There's some of them got a lot of links, some of them got too many links. It just depends on the creator. Sometimes they just give me a link tree, which I won't lie. I love that because it's so many. But that's besides the point. All the links are in the description. But for everyone out there that has enjoyed this quest, right, with Chris, firstly, man, go click on some of the links, man. That's what you should do. Check it out. There's a lot coming up.
I hope people sign up for your Patreon.
And
get those questionnaires.
Oh,
there's a lot of questions. They'll get a lot of info on some creators. They'll have some fun with some of those questions. They'll know that I would be transported by a chariot of cats.
And that's one of the new questions. That's one of the new questions that's only on one of the 3 variations of the questionnaire. But man, so I want to let you all know though, if you see Chris out and about and you did enjoy this quest, right? What I want you to do is send Joseph Campbell. Who's Joseph Campbell?
Joseph Campbell was a great scholar and philosopher of the 20th century who brought modern mythology studies to sort of where they're at today. So that was me being a little tongue-in-cheek. Sorry.
All right, fair enough, man. I told you I didn't have time to properly research. My bad. Chris. It
No, all
happens
good, man.
sometimes, but
All
it's still been a
good.
pleasure.
All
So,
good. Yeah,
yeah.
no, I'm glad I sent that in, and there was a question that I answered in the spur of the moment and then was going to change. I didn't mean to actually send it in. So I'm glad we're not going to cover every question, you know? I don't want to get run out of the comics business, you know?
I hope I don't cover it right now then, because there's two parts of this. So like I said, you send him Joseph Campbell, right, with just a bunch of peanut butter and all kind of delectables to dip in it.
Love
They're just
peanut
gonna
butter,
sit,
sure.
chill, eat some peanut butter, and have a long chat about mythology, wrapped it up with a couple of Hershey's with them almonds, right? Right. Now that is if you've enjoyed this quest, right? If you haven't enjoyed this quest, again, I ask, why are you here? Right? You could have done something that you enjoyed with your time, and all the time that we are allotted is finite. So, you know, like, go find a comic that you would like and don't watch a podcast that you hate. Even though, like I said, I want you to watch this podcast probably more than anybody. I'm just saying. But I don't want people hate watching stuff. I don't care if it's even just me, right? But again, if you did and you haven't enjoyed this quest, or for some reason Chris said something and you're like, that right, right. What I want you to do is when you see him, right, what you do is you send him Freddy Krueger. Man, come on. Freddy Krueger was one part of my head, right? So you send
Scared
him
the
Freddy
shit
Krueger,
out of me when I was a
right,
little kid, man.
right.
Just
But
didn't want to be home alone when that movie scared the shit out of me.
it's okay. It's okay. We're going to make it worse, man, because not only will it be Freddy Krueger, but it will be Freddy Krueger made of nothing but mayonnaise, right?
Oh,
To sit and hold a G.I. Joe aircraft carrier just
oh
out of your
man.
reach like a complete douchebag. But again, that's only if you haven't enjoyed the quest. So
Start
for
the
everyone out there,
GoFundMe for my G.I. Joe aircraft carrier, man.
and
They're
look,
like $2,000.
that's the first time I've ever flipped that like that. I'm really sorry. Usually I say give it to him, but you probably, if you've enjoyed it, go hook him up with that GI Joe aircraft carrier, you know. But it works the other way a little better. You know what I mean? I mean, just yeah. You know, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? Because I don't even think there's that many of those left. But besides that, I just want all y'all out there to do three more things. Right? One, give it that thumbs up. Two, always get your comic on. Three, good night, y'all.
This has been the questionnaire.
Where's the link?
Thanks for checking out the questionnaire.
In the link below, yes?
I will drop it like it's hot.
That's another party.
It's cool, man. I love it.
The questionnaire. That is all.